Day 2010, celebrating 40 years of not giving a fuck. Obama tinkers with Wall Street while the very wealthy laugh in his face. South Park, Muhammad episode, not offensive enough, say rational people across the world. In the UK, hung parliament unlikely as police detain lynch mobs. Hello, slave apes. Welcome to the fucking news. I'm tossing salad. Here are the headlines tonight. April the 22nd is Earth Day, a time for humanity to pause and reflect on our home in the universe, its use, its abuse, its beauty and suffering, the changes our activities have wrought, and how its owners are going to fuck it up even more in the future, while we stand about and watch. Author Kevin Cahill, in his book Who Owns the Earth, states that 15% of humans own the whole planet. The remaining 85%, that's you and me, are their pets and livestock, bystanders to the action, economic slaves, stunned like rabbits in the headlights of too much information and not enough will to do anything about it. Our slavery, the pointless destruction of Earth to make money for its owners. We gobble up pointless nonsense like Earth Day all the time, so we can tick the box next to having nagging doubts that there's something terribly wrong. Here's the blurb from the Earth Day website, reconstructed using our special bullshit filters. 40 years after the first Earth Day, we still don't give a fuck. While climate change is a great bogeyman for our time, it also represents the greatest opportunity, an unprecedented opportunity to make money from slave monkey carbon markets and the rape Earth economy, now and for the future. Earth Day 2010 will be a turning point to advance climate tax policy, energy war efficiency, renewable delusions, and green jobs. Earth Day Network is deluding millions who make personal commitments to sustainability that anything they do personally will make a bit of fucking difference. Earth Day 2010 is a pivotal opportunity for corporations and governments to join together and profit from a global economy of energy markets and green taxes, while rampant consumerism continues unabated. Join more than 1 billion people in 190 countries that are talking shit about sustainable economics on Earth Day. By far the biggest impact on Earth in the last 500 years has been human activity. Here's Deke Jackson with a special report on human beings.
Now there's many kinds of beasts upon the earth. Beetles, snakes, and lizards, and there's birds. There's duck-billed platypi, there's a squirrel that can fly, and a bear that hibernates till spring. But wherever you go and whatever you see, there's nothing as fucked up as a human being. Go and whatever you see, there's nothing But wherever you go and whatever you do, there's nothing as fucked up as human being.
Barack Obama has visited Wall Street, posing as a politician who could do something to rein in the greed and arrogance of wankers on Wall Street, bankers on Wall Street. He posed for a photo opportunity and didn't make the following speech.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. As we all know, our country has endured the deepest recession we've faced in generations, and much of the turmoil was caused by the world's largest financial institutions. Trillions of dollars in household savings evaporated. So the Federal Reserve and other agencies took emergency measures to call on these firms to put greater effort into massive profits and obscene bonuses. That's how we're going to create some even greater calamity for the country, triggering a second Great Depression. That's not only in the best interests of the economy as a whole, it's actually in the interests of these large banks. So I'm going to be working closely with Congress on this proposal. And on behalf of the American people, I look forward to signing it into law. Thank you very much.
In a related story, makers of the South Park comedy cartoon have been criticized for their portrayal of Muhammad as a bear in an upcoming episode. Free speech advocates and human rights campaigners across the world have called for the show to be rewritten so more accurate criticisms of Muhammad, Allah, and Islam can be made. "I'm outraged," said one rational person. "There's not one mention in the program of imaginary beings as a product of delusional morons. Also, they don't mention Muhammad shagging his 9-year-old wife, married when she was 6, after claiming Allah said it was cool. There's nothing in this program about Islamic scholars claiming a man can have sexual pleasure from a child as young as a baby. However, he should not penetrate. Sodomizing the child is okay. The makers of this program have represented Muhammad as a nice cuddly bear," he goes on, "when in fact he was a misogynist and a moron. All believers in imaginary beings are morons. Muslims, Christians, Jews, Hindus, any belief in an imaginary being is an indication that you've lost all form of rational thought. South Park have let Islam and Muhammad off lightly. I'm outraged." In the UK, police have detained large numbers of people headed for Parliament carrying ropes, allegedly planning to string up all sitting MPs from lampposts. A police spokesperson said, "Talk of a hung Parliament being a good thing for Britain has galvanised disaffected voters. The situation we have now is that many people want to see a hung Parliament. Literally, one of the lynch mob arrested just outside London had over 600 hangman ropes and a stepladder. He claimed he was a swing voter, and they were for personal use, going on not to say, MPs are lying, thieving, murdering scum. They sold us into debt slavery, sent our children to die in illegal wars, handed over our lives to business to extract as much money as they can from, while they stuff their piggy noses in the trough of public money like fat pigs. We want to hang a hung Parliament." More on that story later. Thanks, and now the weather. Apathy, ignorance, and misdirection of our collective unconsciousness will continue for some time, or perhaps all time, with more than a chance of economic slavery for most of the people on Earth. Have a nice weekend.
Hello, ladies, gentlemen, girls and boys. Welcome to the fucking radio show. It's my pleasure to have on the show tonight Teresa. Teresa runs a number of websites, most importantly Surfing the Apocalypse. And Teresa, if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us as much about yourself and your websites as you'd like to.
Well, I started Surfing the Apocalypse about 10 years ago. I think a lot of people don't realize that the word apocalypse does not denote the end of the world. The word apocalypse, if you trace it back to its Greek roots, it actually means to reveal. I do think with the advent of the information age, for lack of a better word, that a lot of different things are being revealed, and we are able to share information that we never have before. So, hence surfing the apocalypse, and of course with the reference on the web. And as it turns out, the things that have started happening in the world since then show that we need to be surfing because we have to be flexible and go with the waves that are hitting us. I didn't start it out as a political site per se, more of the mysteries and things that were going on in the world. But then when 911 happened, well, I kind of got dragged into that world, and just kind of coming out of the fog of that and trying to look at some different things, because that took a great number of years for people to really bang out the investigation and try to pin down what happened. Because in the beginning, I mean, first few days, I remember we were researching that, and within 48 to 72 hours, we had the information about the pipeline in going through Afghanistan and Unicol, and how they wouldn't deal with the Taliban, and the asbestos in the World Trade Center, and how they were going to have to come down.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was a terrible feeling to realize that, because when we started working on this, a number of websites that work together, and especially Cyberspace Orbit with Kent Stedman, who recently passed away, well, about a year ago. And there were a number of websites, and we didn't have a premise to go on. We knew when we saw those buildings fall, it looked very strange to us. We didn't have a premise to go on with it. And so we just went with follow the money. Mm-hmm. And we started finding all these things out. In fact, that day that 911 happened, I was on the phone with a friend in New York who was a block down from the World Trade Center. And I was actually getting quicker information than her. She was stuck in her apartment. The plane flew right by her window, the first one, before it hit. And that's one of the reasons. I have eyewitness friends that saw the plane, so I'm not in the no plane theory thing. But she went outside, and when the building started coming down, she was there in Lower Manhattan, and the streets started waving like waves of water, like an earthquake shockwave went through all of Lower Manhattan, and she said people started running and screaming, and it was like a bad Godzilla movie.
That is what it looked like, from the television audience, for me anyway. The whole thing played out on telly for me. And it did. It looked like they've made a blockbuster out of life.
Yeah.
And, like yourself, at the time I didn't really, know what had happened. Obviously, I knew what they were telling us had happened, but I was busy, my mind was on other things. Shortly after, maybe 6 months, a year down the line, when it becomes obvious they're expecting you to believe this outrageous piece of fiction, I think I'm just outraged that they think we're all that stupid. And it's partly why I rant and rave. But tell us about surfing. It's surfingtheapocalypse.com?
Yes, and .net.
And
both.
surfingtheapocalypse.net. Tell us
Yes.
how they work, and about what happens on there, and what's happening current at the moment.
Well, basically, we have a forum there where anyone that's not there to flame can come and exchange ideas and research, and we try to look for the truth in whatever we're seeing, and not publish a lot of things that we know to be blatant disinformation or things like that. Now, that said, there's always going to be something that slips through, and you may find out later, so you always have to use your discernment. Mm-hmm. Of course, this week we've been covering the Icelandic volcano eruptions and the airspace shut down there in Europe. I guess you were affected by that, right?
Well, not directly, because I wasn't going anywhere, but there were people I was working with had to, get the bus back to London instead of fly back, and a lot of people were stranded up and down the country and around Europe. But it's a minor inconvenience, I think.
Did you see an ash cloud over where you were?
A little. Now, there was some kind of very fine dust on our cars in the morning after the first night of it, and the sunsets were particularly nice when you could see them. It's been a bit rainy as well.
Yeah. Well, some people are coming out with a conspiracy theory for that. I mean, sometimes I I'm like, well, not everything can be that, but sometimes it turns out to be. And some people came up with some information that there were extreme NATO exercises going on in that airspace, and it's on the site, in that airspace during this time of the grounding. So there were exercises, military exercises, going on in the air there.
Mm-hmm. Would they have been shut down as well? You would imagine they would. They're even more expensive, those military jets.
Yeah, and then NATO did report they had some damage to, I think, some of their F-16s, so who knows what the truth is. It just seems odd to me. I mean, follow me here, you will, that when these things happen, there's always an exercise going on at the same time. I mean, we saw that with 9/11. We saw that with the subway bombings there in London.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is this? There's always an exercise going on. It just seems too coincidental.
I'd stay away from, if they start an exercise round me, I'm going on holiday.
Yeah, run the other way.
Yeah.
The people here that have posted, most of them have been posting here a long time, and they have a high level of discernment, and there's so much stuff going on now that is just insane, as far as, so-called alternative news. And, I have to say it for the posters here, they don't put up with much if it's just, lies and disinformation. They really suss it out, and I'm very proud of them.
So, looking at the crazy world that we live in, picking, if you like, the brains of your forum members and your own experience, what are the big problems, and if anything, what could people do about them? Oh,
boy. Well, isn't that always the big question? It seems as if we've gone through a phase where there was a massive awakening to things going on in the world, where it was like at various moments within the past decade at least, people sat up and looked around and said, whoa, just about everything I've been told is a lie. And so when that happens, you go through another phase of having to prove that this is happening, and then you figure out you have been lied to, and then you go through a period of anger, and then you have to get through that anger to something else, because we know what's going on now. We know that there's corruption in this world. Yeah. And you've asked the big question, what do we do? And really when it comes down to this, and this is my opinion, not this forum's opinion, what do? We change ourselves. Okay? We don't have any power to change anyone else. So if we change ourselves, and we all do that piece by piece, then the world will change. And that seems, silly maybe in this context, but I don't know any other way.
I absolutely agree with you. We are the only people that we have any power over, or should want any power over. And so if you want to change, I think, by example, if large groups of people or small groups of people or individuals are living a life, and we can see that by example, that's not a bad way to live. That's more attractive than people browbeating you or trying to persuade you or talk you into it or even force you into it, in the case of most countries. Welcome to your country.
Not even countries. I've had this thing happening to me in the last month where it just has come up randomly with various people I know, and they find out I don't watch television. Well, I haven't watched television in years, but all of a sudden now I have noticed in otherwise intelligent people that they are abhorred by that, and they will attack you because you don't watch television.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, where is this coming from? It's like invasion of the body snatchers, and the pod people are all out to, put you back in that television matrix. And also when you turn it off, I've noticed here in America, with the masses, you have less and less ability to communicate with them because you don't share the same consensus reality.
Yeah, again, I think that's a big player in what we might call our collective unconsciousness, which is actually, a lot of it's conscious. People are consciously buying beer and watching sport on television. Yeah. Or,
people just don't realize the degree to which that is manipulating their unconscious or subconscious, and from there springs all of our reality, really, because that's where it starts the creation. Whether you cannot sit here in your room and not create something. You can't do it. It's impossible for us as human beings to not be creating at all times. Mm-hmm. The choice is, will we be conscious and take responsibility for our creation, or will we just let it run away with our lives? And that's the key. We're talking about what you want to do, what can we do, and you have to take responsibility, your ability to respond. You have to look at your life and the world around you and say, what was my part in this, and what can I do to change that? Because again, that's really all you have the power to change.
Okay, that's I agree entirely with you about that. Are there any things, in a practical direction that are you in favour of people attempting to enter their local politics or to become activists, or there's the We Are Change movement, regular protests. There are people who, if you like, retreat into the wilderness, and they're going to...
Well, it all depends on what they need to do and what is their path. I mean, I've seen Luke over at We Are Change. Man, he's done some amazing things, and sometimes I just look at him, and he's young, and I have so much hope for the world, because for a while I didn't see anyone in that generation really becoming aware, and I was like, what's wrong with this? They're supposed to be the people that are coming up behind us and speaking out. So, if that's their path, I fully appreciate it. Not that I would do that at this time in my life, but I certainly support and I understand and absolutely appreciate some of the things those people are doing.
And just on the flip side of that, because talking about optimism and hope and the future, there are things that, we could change, and more people could become different, and that would change the world. But what do you think is going to happen, really? What do you if you were a betting person, what kind of bets would you lay on the future?
Well, that's hard, because honestly, inside me, I don't think the future is written. The probabilities and the way it's going now, well, it doesn't look too good. But, sometimes, I think of Battlestar Galactica, and they repeat, all of this has happened before, and all of this will happen again. And that's really what's going on. It's like we're in these loops of history, and you see them repeat, and it's the same lesson coming back around. What is it? Those who do not remember history are condemned to repeat it. Mm-hmm. Well, that comes back around, because if it comes back around enough times in the mathematical probabilities, at some point there's going to be a surprise. Okay? And in that surprise, a different choice will be made. And then we can go on to the next thing. It's like we're stuck in kindergarten. Mm-hmm. Okay? And this lesson keeps coming around and around, and people make the wrong choice, and it comes around and around again, and it gets bigger and bigger until it just is, reset time.
Yeah.
And if anything, this 2012 thing, I don't know what it is, and I've heard all the theories and things, but I find it interesting that, you know about the web bots and how they do the linguistic, predictive language stuff, and mm-hmm. even them, and I've heard this from psychics and things like that, but they can't see anything during the 2012 period. They can see things before, and some of them can see things after, and that's even true with the web bots. And I look at that period of time and I think, maybe it hasn't been written yet. Maybe that is where humanity can make a choice. So I don't know, because I don't think it's been written yet. And really, I think my job right now is to talk about that and to get people to write a better future, because in the end, we are the ones in control. We just don't know it, and we need to take our power back.
Well said. And on that happy note, Teresa, thanks for being on the fucking radio show. Give your sites a plug one more time.
Right, and you're fucking welcome. Okay, surfingtheapocalypse.com, and apocalypse is spelled APOCALYPSE.com, surfingtheapocalypse.net. Vlogging, like vloggingtheapocalypse.com, is the video site. You can share videos and watch things that are in this genre that we're talking about. And it's been a pleasure to speak with you, Deke.
You too,
Thank
Teresa.